I made my first six-figure year off of 356 people on my email list. So it's not the quantity at all. You don't need 5,000 people. You don't need 10,000 people. You need 356 quality people who are willing to spend whatever it is that you're selling. And that's completely possible. I mean, I've done it, and I've shown other people that they can do it as well.
Just this morning, I watched an incredibly interesting video that sent me down a rabbit hole. A 19-year-old kid was arm wrestling against a massive bodybuilder and won pretty easily. Thinking that this could have been rigged or it's a fake video, you never know with AI these days, I looked for other matches that this fellow, Maxim appears to be his name, competed in, and he won against bigger guys a lot. See, while he is very strong, just he doesn't look as big as the other guys, Maxim also has great technique. And I know you're wondering, what does this have to do with lead generation? Well, as you'll hear from our guest, Jennie Wright, you don't need a massive list to build your business. You don't need to be smarmy. You don't need to be showy. You just need to have good technique and forge good relationships. And that's what we talk about today. Look for these top takeaways. Consistency is key in lead generation, and this is not consistently generate leads. That's a little bit too easily said than done, right? Instead, you should create a plan that aligns with your end goal and focus on activities that will give you the best results within your available time and resources. You should leverage other people's audiences by appearing as a guest on podcasts, speaking at summits, and participating in what Jennie calls bundles, which is these product bundles that you go in on with other creators to create a ton of value for the people who are buying or downloading them. This is an effective way to grow your credibility and reach new potential leads. In fact, I share in the interview that I participated in a virtual summit recently that netted me 50 new subscribers, and I usually average like 20 a week. And finally, you need to nurture your leads authentically by setting expectations, providing value, and building trust. Avoid being too salesy and focus on creating genuine relationships with your audience. When someone joins your list, let them know what they can expect, how they can expect it, and you'll build that trust. If you just try to sell to them right off the bat, they're going to put their guard up. This was a really eye-opening episode for me. In fact, I didn't even take that many notes, which I usually do, because I was really interested in everything Jennie had to say. And so I think you'll really enjoy this episode too. You can find all of the show notes over at streamlined.fm/423 or in your podcast player. In Streamlined Solopreneur Accelerated, the members-only version of the show, we're going to talk about how to quote-unquote mix it up when you do a lot of podcasts. Obviously, Jennie and I both do a lot of podcast guesting, and we don't want to tell the same story over and over again. We want to surprise and delight our potential new listeners or new subscribers. And so we get into techniques about how to do that. So without further ado, let's get into the intro and then the interview. Welcome to the Streamlined Solopreneur, a show for busy solopreneurs to help you improve your systems and processes so you can build a business while spending your time the way you want. I know you're busy, so let's get started. Okay, I'm here with Jennie Wright, expert in email list growth and lead generation. Jennie, how are you today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. And so therefore, I'd love to dive right in. I want to level set. What is lead generation?
Good question. I actually love the fact that you're level setting this out. Lead gen is the procurement or the acquiring of potential leads, potential customers, potential clients into your business through means usually of a lead magnet, something where people can enter their name and email and then receive something in return or sign up for a newsletter. You're basically trying to get them off of social, off of your website, off of whatever ethos, and into your ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's really important, right? Like, because I've been on Twitter since April 1st, 2007.
Oof.
Yeah, I like to say that day I was definitely the April Fool. Though Twitter has been really good to me largely. But it's really hard to sell on Twitter, right? Like it used to be a little easier, but you're not getting the visibility and impact that you're getting from your own ecosystem, right?
Absolutely. If you think about it, social media in itself is supposed to be a very busy, high energy ecosystem, and you're supposed to stay in that by consuming content. But you're not always consuming the same person's content. You're not always going to binge that person's content. If we can get them out of social media and into our ecosystem, our email marketing, our blog, and so on, they're consuming our content on a regular basis, and we can create what I call a transfer of credibility from whomever they've been listening to on a regular basis over to us, right? And then we can also, and this is something I love to do, even though I do list building and lead generation as a thing. One of my particular skills is to find where areas where people are leaking out of your ecosystem and then plugging those holes so they don't.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Because some concern that I have, and I'm going to guess my listeners have, and maybe your customers have, is what if they just sign up for my list for the free thing and then bounce?
Yeah.
That feels like a leak that maybe could be plugged up by providing more value or...
There's a ton of reasons why that happens. If done right, the lead magnet and everything that encompasses around it in your, ecosystem that we're talking about should prevent that sort of like, run and dump kind of thing, like grab it and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that makes sense. And I guess part of it is like, if they were always going to do that, they were never going to buy from you anyway, but
completely.
we want to try to prevent that anyway, right? It's like, leaky faucet might happen. That doesn't mean run your water all night.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I love that we've level set a little bit here. Let's talk about some challenges in lead generation, right? Because again, while you were talking, I imagined like someone busking on a subway platform. It's like just like hundreds of maybe thousands of people throughout the day walking past you, hearing your song, that's pretty good, and then like never thinking about you again, right? And maybe some people throw you a couple of bucks or some change, but very hard to make a living that way, right?
Yeah. Very much.
So what are some of the biggest lead generation challenges that you see with solopreneurs?
The biggest one I think is consistency. There's a lot of lack of consistency. Not being sure what the right cadence should be for your lead gen, right? So am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Am I sending too many emails once they're on my list? So the consistency piece is huge. The other thing is overwhelm. A lot of people get overwhelmed at the idea of doing lead generation in general. So they're like, I'm just going to put a newsletter box on my website and I'm going to hope and pray that's going to work. And so one of the things that I think is one of the biggest challenges besides consistency is everything pointing in the same direction. And that's where you have to make sure that the link on your Instagram is going to your link tree or some page where consistently the same information appears as would if you reference something off of a podcast or if people land on your website and want to get resources, right? So we should be able to find pretty much the same things. And there should always be, in my opinion, either a strong call to action or a soft call to action. And when we're looking at lead generation and what people are struggling with, it's, I don't know what I should have on there. I don't know how often I should be talking about it, and so on. And I think there's just a lot of ambiguity in that space.
Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned consistency, right? Which is a thing that content creators talk about all the time. I said like, oh, you should be consistent in your podcast. And that doesn't mean you need to publish multiple times a week or even once a week. You just need to do it on a predictable schedule. What does consistency look like with lead generation? Is it like, is it saying join my list? I have this lead well, you didn't say I have a lead magnet, but you'd say I have this free resource or whatever. Or is there like another aspect that I'm not seeing?
You're seeing the right thing, but I'm going to recommend that we pull it back a little bit, just go a little bit bigger picture. Your lead gen should always be working backwards from your end goal. And that should be, I'm going to launch my brand new, or I'm going to launch my biggest course, or I'm going to launch something in September as an example. Looking at your current email list and your lead generation at the moment, even if that is absolutely zero, like you have nobody on your list and nobody on your social, nothing, you still have to work backwards. I want to launch this thing in September. What do I have to do between now and then to grow an audience, build up my email list, engage the email list I already have that I may have forgotten about and haven't talked to in a long time? Consistency. What do I have to do? And you plan backwards like that. That's going to get you a better, more effective result than just saying, I'm going to send an email every week and I'm going to post on social media. I have this lead magnet and I'm going to try and join summits. So to fulfill that goal, that September goal, if I put it out there, then we should look at between today and that launch as your runway. What activities can you do within that runway that are going to give you the best bang for your buck so that your launch is successful? Lead generation, connection, visibility, networking, those types of things. And the biggest things that I would recommend people do are guest podcasting. Phenomenal way to get in front of other people's audiences. So if you don't have your own audience, or if your audience is old and stale and hasn't really been connecting, or they don't convert, you have to focus on getting other people's audiences. So guest podcasting, guest speaking on summits, right? Guest speaking on anything you can get your hands on, basically online or in person if you prefer to do in person, but online gets you a bigger audience. And then if you have the bandwidth and the ability, hosting your own list building and lead generation is essential. So depending on your abilities, and I work with a lot of people who have overwhelm, anxiety, people who are neurodiverse. And so I don't want to create overwhelm. I want to make it fit where they are. And I don't like to prescribe a whole plan. So if that's the case, and that's a lot of entrepreneurs, then we start with something that feels comfortable and cozy, and then we can build on that. So that could be a 3-day challenge. That could be a small mini audio summit. That could be a full-blown summit. That could be a 30-day content sprint, which I'm actually working on with somebody right now. Things like that, so that we fit the lead generation to the person's abilities, opportunities, and strengths.
I love that. And I'm trying to say that less because I say it a lot on this show. I actually have a Post-it note behind me that says stop saying I love that. But that's, first of all, it feels very anti-hustle culture to me, which I'm old school hating anti-hustle culture, like when Gary Vee was talking about it. And now it's just like Alex Hormozy or whoever talking about it now.
Yeah.
So that feels great. And then I love that you put context around. It's not just like build your list. It's like your list is a vehicle for you and you need to get people in that vehicle. And so
willingly,
I think like in the creator space, people are just like, oh, I need a big mailing list and then it'll get sponsored. But when you're a solopreneur, when you have a business to run, you're selling something else, right? Like I get people on my list and then they go into a welcome sequence that tells them how I helped people, I coached people into making them a more consistent podcaster, and they loved their podcast. And so they wanted to keep doing it, but they couldn't. And that has worked for me, right? People are, I'm interested, let me know. And so there is this end goal in mind, right? And so if you're launching a product, like you said, you have this runway or a roadmap that you should try to fulfill. I think that that's crucially important. It's not just consistently yell from the rooftop, join my list. It's consistently be where your potential audience is, and then ask them after providing value to join your list and get more value.
Yeah. There's actually
Awesome.
there's actually something that I talk about. It's important. It's creating your lead gen sort of strategy around providing a ton of value, and then only when you feel like you've done that, asking for, you kind of deposit $5 in the relationship bank, and then you kind of want to just like take out $1 here and there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You never want to overextend that, and it has to be real relationship building. That's essential. I made my first 6-figure year off of 356 people on my email list.
Wow.
So it's not the quantity at all. You don't need 5,000 people. You don't need 10,000 people. You need 356 quality people who are willing to spend whatever it is that you're selling. So, and that's completely possible. I mean, I've done it, and I've shown other people that they can do it as well. So it's not the it's not the quantity. And back in the day, I'm sure you remember this because you've been around for a bit too. People are like, oh, you can't be on my podcast or you can't be on my summit unless you have a 5,000 person email list. I think that's absolutely bogus. And I think it's elitist, and I hate it.
Yep. What that screams to me is, I'm not here to serve other people. I'm here to serve me.
Exactly. It's so self-serving. There's no relationship building in that. And it's transactional. And I hate transactional relationships. I really like let's build an actual online friendship, or whatever you want to call it, and then be of service to each other, right? And if you put that out there, I really do believe that if you put out good, you receive good, and I think it's super important.
Yeah, and like, not for nothing, but your audience can tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I get the scam calls from like Patrick McJohnson, asking me about my car accident in the last 2 years. I know the guy's name isn't Patrick McJohnson, and I know he's not actually calling from an insurance company, and I didn't have a car accident in the last 2 years. I know he's trying to scam me, right? Yep. Versus, actually forming a relationship with somebody and understanding what they do and how we can help each other. Your audience can tell when you're in it just for you, because it's very me focused. It's not very audience focused. So, I love that. Just said it again. That's like my now. So I want to ask, you touched on mindset a little bit, right? But people do find it overwhelming because I think it is really like the culture. It's like, I have a list of this many people, or I have a bajillion million followers on Instagram and they're all clicking my affiliate link or whatever. If you are starting with, and I've been building my list for like a long time, and I did switch, right? This is a small tangent, a little side road. I switched my audience a couple years ago from web developers to podcasters specifically, right? For my coaching services. And I was basically starting from scratch. And so I'm around like 1,450 people right now. Pretty good. I got like 50 from Ecamm Live's recent summit, which is wild.
Nice.
I could not believe it. Power of summits. But it feels really hard and overwhelming for me to build my list. So how can I, and maybe some of the listeners who feel that way, shift their mindset from this is something I have to do to this is something I get to do?
That's an excellent question. And I will not say that I have a ton of experience in the mindset space. I am not. That's not my niche. But I will tell you that as somebody who easily got into overwhelm and has had to mindset shift a ton in the past decade, I look at it as this. I have a gift or an ability or a skill. And by not growing my audience and sharing that with others, I am robbing them of what I do well. And I'm opening the door for people who want to be a little bit spammy and scammy to fill the space. So I have a mission. I should be talking about this thing. I'm known, and Joe, you might not even know this, but I'm known for online summits. Like I've produced about 380 of them. Oh, and wow. Back in the day when they first started, there was a spammy, scammy way of doing it. And I was like, this sucks. I'm not doing this. And so I created my own way. And I said, okay, this is like Summits 2.0. We're going to do it differently. Drop the 5,000 person list. create connections, make them shorter, make them more interesting, and so on. So to your point, I think it's about looking at what we can put into the world, what we can help people with. And then in terms of the overwhelm piece, this is my answer always. Be a guest, right? So you were just on eCam Summit, you got 50 registrations to your lead magnet. I am on a summit right now and as a guest, and I've gotten in the past 8 days about 150 registrations.
Nice.
Okay. I have a bundle that I'm on next week that I was on last year. I know that I'm going to get another 200 approximately from that. So I participate and I apply to events that I know are going to support and put me in front of my ideal client, which means I have a good lead magnet, I have a good follow-up sequence, I make a good offer, I close sales. And that's not very overwhelming, because if you want to be on a summit or a bundle, it's like an hour of your time. Right? Either you do a 30-minute interview or you provide a gift and you promote it. It's really a lot less overwhelm than hosting your own. And you might not be ready for hosting your own. You might at some point, but if you're on 5 or 6 summits or events and then add in the podcasting and things like that in a 6-month span, you could be adding 1,000 people to your list.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to ask you later how we find events, because this is really good. I think what I want to touch on here before we take a break for our sponsors is there's this, it feels like, at least in my mind, there's a push and pull, right? I wrote one of my like cornerstone pieces of content a few years ago when I was still in the WordPress space was we need to pay speakers, right? WordCamps never pay speakers. And then the virtual, maybe now feel free to push back on this, but maybe this is the thing that you thought was the wrong way to do it. For a while, every summit or virtual event that I applied to was like, well, we're not going to pay you. You're going to use your affiliate link. Also, you need to promote it 4 times to your list, and you need to do this and that. And it just felt like, so I'm bringing the content and the marketing. What if I'm promoting it to my list? What's my benefit? But the way you just framed it was like, yeah, it's maybe like if you're putting a lot of time into your talk and you're doing a talk, maybe it's like a couple of hours of your time. But I happily traded that for a talk I can reuse, by the way.
Yeah.
And 50 new signups for me is like 200% more than I usually get in a week, and I got it in a day. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a bit of a mindset shift, right? So that what you said before, I'm bringing the marketing, I'm bringing the people. And yes, that exists. Okay. With an online summit, the goal is exposure. And to get that first 1,000 leads or your next 1,000 leads, like we're talking about, you have to be willing to accept a couple things. One, you're not going to get paid for online summits. There's no budget for them unless, and I do these too, is I do pay speakers if we can do sponsorships. So right now I'm actually planning a summit in, there's a space, what is it? What do you call it? It's sort of like a charitable space. Mm-hmm. And we're planning a summit. We're paying the speakers, but we're getting sponsorships where we're actually going to companies and saying, we're hosting this event. If you'd like your products or whatever, in front of a group, we have potentially an audience of X size. We have a $10,000 sponsorship, a $15,000, a $2,000, a $500. Which one would you like? We've already got a commitment of about $25,000 so far. We're trying to go for 50, which means we can pay our speakers $2,000 each. Right?
Yeah, that's
for
amazing.
An online event, which is great.
Right.
I mean, and they're, excuse me, the speakers are doing a 20-minute interview and they're promoting. But I want to talk about that promotion piece. Like you have to promote it 4 times and stuff. That fits into that 5,000 person email list that I think is scuzzy. So here's how I approach it. I will come and say, Joe, I'd love to have you on my summit. I think you're an amazing speaker. I'd love to have this collaboration. I am asking all speakers to promote, but I'd like to ask you, what do you feel comfortable with in terms of promotion?
Yeah. And that's the framing, right? I am happy to tell my list that I'm speaking at an event. I always do. But it's really like you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what are these requirements?
Well, you and I talked a little bit before we hit record that neither one of us like the oversight and the ridiculous asks.
Right.
That's a ridiculous ask.
Right.
So doesn't it feel better if I say, what are you willing to do? What feels comfortable for you? And then you go, okay, yeah, this feels like somebody asked my permission.
Right. Which is the same approach I take with guests, right? Like there are some people who are like, they make you check the box when you go on their podcast that you're like, I will share this to my list and on social. And I'm like, this feels like a contract. But like when my guest episodes come out, I say, hey, your episode is live. I would love and appreciate if you shared it. But like, I'm never going to follow up with that. Here's a link. My guests, by the way, are so much better at sharing my episodes on social media than I am. So like, shout out to all my guests. They're sharing it on LinkedIn and I'm really bad at this game. But again, I'm not making them. That's not their, I view like you're coming on the show and you're providing already in the 20 minutes we've been recording, you've provided a ton of value. That's all I can really ask. Right. And so I love your framing and your approach because on the other side, I am happy to share with people that I shared that I was speaking at the Ecamm Live event, right? The Ecamm Leap into Tools and Tactics. Ecamm Live is the product. Mm-hmm. But again, if they were like, yeah, you have to share this 400 times to whoever, I'm like, that would probably leave a bad taste in my mouth. And,
and that's not how Katie and Doc run things.
Absolutely. They're like the nicest, generous people.
But don't you feel encouraged by their niceness and their sort of like friendship or, the networking that you can create and things like that? Don't you feel compelled then to promote? Because that's
exactly right.
Compelled versus controlled or whatever word. I'm not sure, but it just feels more natural and you want to do it.
There is another word there and I'm blanking on it. Compelled versus coerced. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was like, well, I mean, Katie asked me to do it, so of course I'll do it. And that's the feeling that you want. And you can have that, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really good. I also do want to point out, yes, if an event is not sponsored, if it's just like bootstrapped or whatever, first of all, I very rarely get paid to speak. And so this is not like a hard and fast rule for me. I recognize the value, but if someone's selling 5-figure, low to mid 5-figure sponsorship packages, and then someone's like, you have to do an hour talk in a workshop and think of all the exposure you get. I'm like, well, where is that money going? So that's really the alarm that goes off in my head, the bell that goes off in my head. Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. I love everything that we've talked about here so far. I want to push back on one thing though, but first we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. Look, when you have an online-based business, speed and reliability are the most important aspects of a service. Not far behind that is actually owning the website that your business relies on. When you own your website, you're not subject to an algorithm, changing terms, or accidental shutdowns. That's why I'm so excited that Liquid Web is back as a sponsor of How I Built It this year. Their Cloud VPS is some of the best in-class hosting you can get when your business relies on your website. From speed to security and protection to regular backups, with Liquid Web, you can trust your website will remain in tip-top shape. Not technically savvy? Don't worry. Liquid Web offers fully managed hosting, which means they have a team of knowledgeable experts looking after your website for you, so you can focus on running your business. If you need fast, reliable, and secure hosting for your business, check out Liquid Web. Head over to howibuilt.it/liquidweb today. This episode is sponsored by Clarity. One of my biggest projects as part of the show's rebrand is to organize the website's content. That's over 400 episodes, and I was doing it using a Google Sheet. And if you're overwhelmed by that statement, you should be. But there's a better way. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could conduct a comprehensive content audit in minutes, identify areas for improvement with ease, and finally ditch the content guesswork? Clarity is your secret weapon. It automatically syncs your WordPress data, merges your Google Analytics information, and pulls insights from Google Search Console. It's your new go-to platform for content auditing. With Clarity, you can uncover hidden gems by easily identifying low-performing posts with broken links, missing alt text, or outdated information. You can track progress by monitoring the impact of your optimization efforts. You can see what content is truly resonating with your audience, and you can replicate your success by identifying your top performers and leveraging those insights to fuel future content creation. Imagine the time you'll save. No more combing through endless posts or building complex spreadsheets. Clarity makes content auditing and optimization a breeze. And as a listener of Streamlined Solopreneur, you can sign up for just $1 your first month with the code SOLO2024. That's $1 for your first month with the code SOLO2024. To set up your account, go to streamlined.fm/clarity. That's streamlined.fm/CLARITI. Thanks so much to Clarity for sponsoring the show. And we're back. So the thing I wanted to push back on, I've been a web developer since 2000, right?
Wow.
My first client was my church, and they came to me and they're like, we'll pay you. And I'm like, great. This was easy. Then all my friends' parents who had businesses came to me. So my business was largely word of mouth. Like, that's worked for me in the past. Can't I just keep doing that?
Yes, and you can. However, in weird times, those word of mouth people can dry up. So I find the word of mouth is either feast or famine. And creating consistency is what we're trying to create with our lead gen, so that at any given moment, if your biggest referral partner is no longer able to refer you or has just run out of, juice in terms of who they can refer you to, you still have something to fall back on. Additionally, you benefit from continuously doing things like networking and growing those relationships in your lead gen, because your next referral partner is most likely in your email list. I have people in my email list, and by the way, I'm one of these people that does not kick people off my list if they don't open my emails or whatever.
Yeah.
Simply because I have people who sit on my email list dormant. Life is happening for them in whatever way, shape, or form. And then 2 years later, they're like, hey, I want to work with you, or I know so-and-so, and they would be a perfect fit. And then they connect me with that person. I'm like, absolutely, that's awesome. I don't mind paying for that person to sit on my list at all. And so, yes, and word of mouth is great. My business is word of mouth. I actually, weirdly enough, Joe, you're not going to believe this. My partner was in the car driving to go play golf. He was listening to a podcast in the car, and it was a pretty big podcast. I was shocked. And the person says, yeah, when it comes to list building and lead gen, there's Jennie Wright, the Summit Queen. And I think he almost drove off the road. He's like, wow. He's like, he comes at you. You're not going to believe who I heard this from. So, but that's somebody that I've never met, Joe. I've never even met these people. I've never been on their podcast. I don't even know them. But through word of mouth and networking, and also seeing me consistently build my list and lead gen, those people found me. And I came up in a conversation on a podcast, which then sent traffic to my website, by the way.
Nice.
Right? So it's full circle. It's full circle. So yes, word of mouth does work, but you need a backup method and consistency to actually scale.
Yeah, it's what's that theory that like we can only connect to like 50 people or maybe it's like 200 people. It's a very finite amount of people, right? And so like if we are only relying on those sort of word of mouth relationships, then our business is going to be very finite. And like, I don't want to scale to like a bunch of employees and millions of dollars. I very much built a business that allows me to take this coming Friday off so that I can go to my kids' career day and bring my green screen and like have some fun with kids and show them the cool stuff that you can do with technology. But also, I got to put food on the table. Like I do need to support my family.
Yeah.
And it almost, I mean, maybe like if ChatGPT were summarizing what you just said here, it's almost like you can't have word of mouth unless people know who you are, right? Like people can't recommend what they don't know.
Yeah.
So getting out there, building your list just increases the surface area of potential word of mouth recommendations.
I'm jealous that you said that more eloquently than me.
I talk a lot. my people are always like, your kids are so like, they're so great at talking for their age. And I'm like, yeah, it's because their dad never stops talking. So they hear a lot of words throughout the day. But yeah, I think that's fantastic and important. And I want to key in on something you said here that you don't mind paying for people sitting on your list, because this has been like a very like in the zeitgeist sort of thing lately. Like, hey, here's how to set up an automation to clean up your list, right? And it's probably because certain tools, including the one I use and I love, sometimes it feels like you're getting raked over the coals once you hit a certain level.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that I use ConvertKit, and I know that they're doing things to make it easier for people, right? Like cheaper for people. But I feel like that technique came out of the idea that like, why am I paying hundreds of dollars a month for people who don't appear to be engaged? But, you got to look at the slow play, right?
It's a long game. I've been doing this for 12 years, right? I still have people on my list that are there since I was on Aweber, and then I moved from Aweber I was on ConvertKit for a bit, and then I moved to ActiveCampaign. So I've had people who've done the jump with me 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been along for the ride. And new people come in, and there's always attrition, right? That's why you should always be list building, because you always have attrition, people leaving your list and unsubscribes. And, I wish them well and send them off on their day.
Yeah.
I believe in creating, because I love technology and I love automation. I do believe in creating an automation for active users and non-active users on your email list. And then I devise a plan where I create an activation sequence that attempts to reactivate those people and then move them into my active box, my active tag. And so I try and do that with a continual thing. I do have a 3-month non-active and a 6-month non-active. And non-active on my side means didn't open, didn't click, right? So did open, no click, technically active, reading, aware, right? After 3 months, not active, meaning not, no open, no click. They go to they go to that 3-month list, and there's a different automation for those people. The 6-month is like, am I giving you what you need? I want to make sure I'm giving you what you need. And if I'm not, and this isn't the thing for you, no worries. If it is, and you just want to sit quiet, you just sit quiet, like, don't worry about it. But they're not opening those emails, right? But I am trying to reactivate them. And then people who are just sitting there, like, not opening the emails, if it's more than let's be honest. If it's more than like 5 or 6 years, I might be saying, or even less, I might go, hey, you know what? It doesn't look like we're really providing you the value. We're going to send you a couple more emails, and then we're going to say goodbye unless it's something that's a good fit. But I don't do it like everybody else. We're like, hey, unless you those Facebook posts, like, I'm trying to trim my Facebook friends list, and unless you comment on this post, we're going to remove you. I just don't like that. I don't prescribe to that. So I try and do it from a loving side.
Yeah. And I like that, right? Because there is like the push and pull between deliverability and like providing value in the slow play. And so I like the reactivation, right? And like, people were with me in MailChimp, and then I moved to ConvertKit, and also an entire niche change.
Yeah.
I had a whole sequence. It was like 5 emails. It was like, hey, in 5 days, I'm going to stop writing about WordPress completely. Like, you've probably noticed I've done that already, but just to make it clear, like, if you were here for WordPress, like, you're not going to get that from me anymore. Click here to unsubscribe, like, no hard feelings, right? And I got a bunch, right? but a lot of people stayed on, and for the attrition, every email I send, I see at least one person unsubscribe who was with me for the "It's a new day for this email list," which is the first email I sent from ConvertKit. And I'm like, wow, they have stuck with me for 7 years or something like that.
Yep.
Right. So, it's I feel like people don't just stay on lists if they don't care. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Whenever I get an email, I'm like, all right, I'm like over this. I'll unsubscribe. And so like the more loving, nurturing thing that you're doing, I think makes a lot of sense. And then it also kind of continues to build the relationship and be like, oh, hey, they're not like being super cutthroat about it.
It's just not who I am.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think do what you're comfortable with feels like the subtitle of this episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, all of that said, this does feel like a lot could take a long time, right? I mean, we'll talk in a little bit about maybe how to find the right lead magnets, but is there a way that we can streamline this a little bit?
By
I wish I had put my sunglasses on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By streamline, do you mean make it happen faster, get more leads more quickly?
Maybe it's like put a good process in place so I'm not spinning my wheels all the time.
Okay, yeah, I can give you the Jennie Wright process that I put in for pretty much. I look at for everybody. It's like my base method.
Mm-hmm.
So base method is this. I'll go through it pretty quickly. If you want to get into anything more deeply, we can. So base method is always a newsletter box on the website, minimum, if you don't have a lead magnet. Then it's a quick build to your first lead magnet that is usually a PDF download and leads to either a call or a secondary action. Within the first 6 months, I will get 2 more lead magnets built, but different, right? So they won't be PDF downloads. They'll either be a video plus PDF aside, or there'll be a different kind of training, or there'll be an ebook or something different. Not always the same thing because people learn differently. And they'll be on a slightly different topic. So now we have 3 lead magnets. Okay, so that's the goal, 3 lead magnets in 6 months. We will look at the low-hanging fruit for lead gen, which is appearing on other people's audiences. So that's, getting on other people's summits, getting on other people's podcasts, and I can tell you where to find those, right? So just getting on other people's things. That's the easiest way to create lead gen. Okay. And then one of the things that I create is I always create a media folder on people's Google Drive. If you make it stupid simple, and I say this a lot, if you make it stupid simple for people to find you, book you, hire you, meet you, then you're eliminating all the barriers to entry to make them do it. So media folder, first person bio, third person bio, approved images, talking points, like the talks that you would talk about, 3 different talks, right? And links to your lead magnet. That's an easy peasy media folder. And you don't even have to have it built on your website by a WordPress person. You just put it on Google Drive, right? Yeah, and then I create a pretty link on my website that's jennywright.com/media. And then I can send everybody to that. Okay, make it simple. Yeah. So that's another thing. So now we've got 3 lead magnets. We've got a media folder. We're pushing out to try and find guest podcasting, guest speaking, and so on and so forth. And now we're going to take it to the next level. The next level is a list injection. Okay, this is where you're going to host your own list build, because everything I've told you is going to get you list growth, but it's going to be onesies and twosies on your lead magnet. And then if you appear on a summit like you did, you can get 50 in a day. Or if you appear on a bundle and so on, you might get more. Okay. Those are the things. Now we're going to create a list injection. This is your 1,000. This is like, at the end of this exercise, I'm going to have 1,000 new subscribers. That's where I want you to look at hosting an online summit. And they are they are work. They're a lot of work, but they're not scary. And it's not hard work. It's easy work. None of it's hard. It is all simple. It just takes time and proper planning. And properly planned out over 5 months, a summit feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to feel like pain. It doesn't have to pull from your life. You're not going to miss Friday career day with your kids. It fits into your life.
Yeah.
Right? So now we've got 3 lead magnets. We're building up our list. We're peering under people's things. We're growing our credibility. And now we're going to host our own thing, which sets us up as an expert in our field. And we're going to create a list injection. We're going to get those first 1,000 people. We're going to make some money off of it, right? And there's different ways to do that. Now we're set up to really sell the bigger thing, right? So if we were doing one-on-one coaching, everything I told you before the summit can fill your one-on-one coaching. Now the summit is going to get you to scale. Okay? You do one summit a year and do all the other things I told you. That's a continual build that supersedes or exceeds any attrition that you'll have on your email list. So you'll be in growth mode constantly, but it feels comfortable. None of it is hustle culture. None of it's going to overtake your life, and you're not going to freak out and go, Jennie, what the crap did you just ask me to do? It's going to feel comfy and happy.
That's amazing. And I'll say, like, I've been behind this. My friend Brian Richards does virtual summits, and I've seen about like he does like a global audience multi-day thing, which feels bananas. And he and I both get in the weeds on tools and processes there.
I build those too, Joe. I build the big ones, but the smaller ones are just as effective.
Yeah. So let's talk about a smaller one real quick. Are we talking like 4 hours, 8 hours, 5 talks, pre-recorded, live, special platform, just Zoom? Like,
so we can, there's always adding, like, okay, you're a process person, you're an automation person. We can add in all the layers you want. We can get in the weeds. If you want to keep it simple, then you create what I say is a 2-day event. Okay. 10 to 14 speakers, pre-recorded, 20-minute to 25-minute sessions. Okay. That's not a lot. First day is speaker, right? All released and everything. Day 2 is a half-day speaker, half-day sales. So in the morning, you're releasing your speakers, and then at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 11 o'clock in the morning, whatever you want, you host your 2-hour workshop for whatever it is. So if you were trying to get people for your course, as an example, because I know you have a course, then your first day is speaker, and stuff like that. And then your second day is a workshop to show people how automation can transform their podcast, save them 12 hours a week, et cetera, and help them, grow their podcast and all those kinds of things. And you're just going to give them the pain points. You're going to give them a simple solution and show them what it is. And then you can make the sale. But you're providing really good content. You know what I mean? And you're offering a little bit of like, hey, if you join from this workshop, you're going to get a special bonus, either early bird pricing, or you're going to get an extra coaching session with me, or however it goes. 2 days, easy. Okay. You can have a VIP package for $47 and $67, make a bit of money. That's the easy version. If you want to do what your friend does, and I do those too, those are for multi-6 and 7-figure entrepreneurs and people who have a team. You cannot do the big ones without a team, right? So the simple one, you can just use Zoom. You can create a landing page in ConvertKit if you want, or wherever, WordPress or whatnot. I like to build on things like ClickFunnels and Go High Level, which at the time we're recording this have just entered into litigation with each other. Super fun. ClickFunnels is actually suing Go High Level. Awesome. But those are the tools. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I think Go High Level is going to be okay, but we'll see. So those 2 tools are the ones I normally use, Kajabi, stuff like that. But you can keep it really, really simple. And then the bigger summits have a lot more bells and whistles. But, you can have a different result. And all of this is organic. There's no paid anything in here. It's all organic. Because you get a better result with organic than you do with paid. Yeah.
Man, I have like a lot. There's a lot to think about here, but this is amazing. Also, I want to point out to those listening who may be aspiring to be really good podcast guests. Jennie basically said my tagline. Like, she did her research. Like, she knows what I'm about, which is really nice. Because I've also had people on the show, or I've been guilty of this too, where I get on the show and I'm like, I don't know what this person does, and I wish I had looked it up. So kudos to Jennie for being a really good guest as well.
I did do my research.
Yes, love it. This is also why your pitch was so good. Like, this is, we're going to talk about this in the pro show in accelerated. I need to get used to saying that. It's been a rebrand. But we're going to talk about, how to kind of mix it up when you're doing a lot of podcasts, right? Maybe we'll talk a little bit about pitching, but it's mostly going to be about like, how do you not just sound like you're on a press junket asking the same 5 questions over and over again? So if you're interested in that, you can become a member over at streamlined.fm/423. You'll also find all of the show notes over there. You'll find my lead magnet, which is my automations template. But everything you can find over at streamlined.fm/423. Okay, we've gotten a lot of information. There are several questions I want to get to that I don't think we're going to be able to, but this is a really important one, so I definitely want to cover it. How can we being solopreneurs, nurture leads in a way that feels authentic and not too salesy? Because it feels like, hey, welcome to my list. Buy something from me. That feels like it doesn't work.
For the most part, it won't. It does for some people. It does for some, but for most people, it's not going to. So how I look at it is, again, it's that $5 in the nurture piggy bank before you try and take $1 out. And that applies to your emails. Like, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining my list. Here's the thing that you asked for. And so I always start with, here's what to expect. I'm a solopreneur just like you. I'm trying to grow my business, support my family. I like to spend my weekends making pies, whatever. So here's how I'm going to roll. Every week, I'm going to send you an email and let you know what's going on and share valuable insights and information that I think are going to help. If that's great for you, awesome. Occasionally, I'm also going to share opportunities that I think are going to fit for where you are right now and how I think I can support you. You want those? Great. You don't? No problem, right? I'm here to help and support. And occasionally I'll also do ABC, XYZ. And that's about it. And I'm really glad you're here. And just to show my appreciation, here's something you didn't know you were going to get. A little extra.
Yeah.
Because I want to show my value, like that I value that you're here. And so stay tuned, because in 2 days, I'm going to send you an email. It's titled XYZ. And here's what I'm going to have in it. And I think it might be helpful. So stay tuned for that. And then I close the email. Right. So I've set expectations. I told them what I'm about. I've given them a little thing about, how I value them. I've given them something extra that they never thought they were going to get that I think is valuable. And I told them in 2 days, this is what's coming. So you have full clarity of what's coming your way. No surprises in Jennie land.
Yeah.
So they know what to expect. And that ends up taking a lot of the sting out of the, I'm putting into the piggy bank right away with the extra freebie, with who I am, what to expect, clarity, calm, right? Always be that calm thing. And so they know exactly what's coming. And it kind of it makes people more relaxed and go, okay, all right, let's see what this is. And the guard's down. Yeah.
It's like you're making the investment and then you're collecting the dividend. You're not even like collecting the initial investment, right? You've generated goodwill interest here.
That's the hope. Yeah.
I like that. It reminds me of, I used to be, I won't say anti, that's not the right word, but let's say suspicious of Justin Welsh. The Saturday Solopreneurs is his newsletter. He spoke at CEX. My friend Chanel will tell you that I always approach from a position of suspicion. And I need to be won over, but that I do have an open mind and can be won over. And Justin, during his interview at CEX, did win me over. He provided some really good, interesting value. He talked about how he's not all about the sales. He's genuinely built a list he said, I like to give everything away. I say give everything away for free. And then people can pay me for the organization. So like they can sift through all of my newsletters and every video I've ever done and put it in an order that works for them, or they can pay me $97 to do that for them. And I really liked that because it really resonates with the way I think, and I think the way that we can make that investment into the piggy bank of goodwill.
We need to be good humans.
Yeah.
And
like
that's I think just approaching it that way. Is it a little bit slower sometimes? Sure. Is it less bro markety? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's my dad and brothers. So when my grandfather passed away, he had a long-term investment account and he just like saved all of his money and left it to us. And this was around the same time my dad retired. And so we were going to pool our money and put it into a REIT, which is a real estate investment something. I forgot what the T stands for. And the guy who did the pitch is like, you can make 22% year over year. And a couple of my brothers were like, that's great. And I'm like, what is the catch? Because no one makes 22%.
No.
That we would all be rich if we made 22%.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out like that was a very inflated number based on performance from one thing a long time ago. And they made their money per transaction. So they made a bunch of transactions every day and charged us for them all. And that's like you're trying to sell get rich quick.
Mm-hmm.
Life, there is no get rich quick in life.
Not legally, as far as I've been able to find.
not legally, right?
Yeah, and I'm not about that life.
Yeah, or not long term.
No,
right?
No.
You can make a ton of money really fast, but if you're a charlatan, people will know that you're a charlatan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd rather slow and trustworthy.
Slow and steady.
Slow and steady, absolutely. Jennie, this has been great. As we close out here, I do want to ask, like, okay, so what are two, I always ask for like the actionable advice at the end here. We've gotten a lot. So maybe we can just maybe do, you provided your base framework. But if someone wants to get started like today, what should they do? Like, how do they figure out what their first lead magnet should be?
Do some research. Spend an hour to 2 hours. Get on social media. Find your people, wherever your people are, and see what they're talking about, right? So what are the pain points that they're talking about? Don't look at the people in your space who are also solving the same issue. Okay? Don't.
I'm sorry, was that directed at me?
Maybe not. But don't look at those people. Look specifically at your audience and nobody else, not the providers, but the people. See what they're talking about, the issues that they're talking about. And then you can see who they're following and you can go that way. But always start with the people first. And like as an example, like Amy Porterfield would be somebody I would look at if I was looking at the provider. But I need to look at what our people are actually talking about. And then, and then I can go that way. So that's how I would do that before creating my first lead magnet. Then I'd get out ChatGPT. And I would feed ChatGPT, copy and pasted what people have been saying are their biggest issues, and then ask for a list of like 10 highly engaging, thought-provoking, blah, 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 lead magnet ideas. And then I would start to whittle down.
I like that. And now people on this show know that I am AI hesitant, right?
As a person who writes as well, me too.
Yeah.
It's not gospel. It's not, don't take it for word. And yes, you can train a ChatGPT, but I always end up making my own edits. For me, it's idea generation.
Yeah, exactly. And so talk to the people that you're trying to serve. I did an email survey, which got pretty good results. I was pretty shocked. And then I also ran a similar poll across social media for people who are following me. And I found that where people are spending, where they feel they spend too much time is not necessarily in editing, which is what I thought, or promoting, which is also what I thought. It's in content planning. And I'm like, well, hot dog, I have processes out the wazoo for that. So put all that information into, I'm trying Perplexity Pro, which is like a thing that also talks to ChatGPT and Claude, and I like Claude for writing.
Yeah.
And I said, here's all my survey data, all my poll data. Help me coalesce. Like, help me massage this data and come up with something good. And now I'm working on not just a lead magnet, but like a product to help people. So love AI, generative AI, LLMs for that sort of thing. But also like talk to your audience. I have been doing this for a while. I have assumptions. My assumptions were wrong. And
Right.
so it could be as easy as emailing your current list and just being like, hey, what are you struggling with? And then they respond. Or like Jennie said, go out into Facebook groups or Twitter's, whatever they have now, and actually talking to the people that you're trying to serve.
Do you know I do a survey every week?
On your email list?
LinkedIn.
Oh, on LinkedIn. Oh, no. Katie Brinkley. I don't know if you know her.
Oh, yes. She's the person who does my social media.
So she just, this is so fun. She spoke at, I went to her talk at CEX.
She's amazing.
So good. And yeah, she gave like her
4-post strategy.
pillars.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, the first one, that's why I just ran that poll recently because I'm like,
Yep.
this feels good. I need to get her book. I need to get her on the show, to be honest.
You 100% need to get her on a show, and her book is amazing. She's been doing my social media for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at 2 years, and I run her online events, like her summits and so on and so forth.
So good.
Yeah, and amazing, actually. I'm so thankful to have a friend like her. And the surveys that she does are, I just, my eyes pop because I'm like, I never thought that was going to be the answer. And now I have to rethink. And it's great. It's like, but I write content from like, oh, this is the results of the poll. Awesome. This made me think. And I actually do some podcast episodes from it. Like, hey,
Nice.
I did an episode, I did a poll on LinkedIn. These were the 3 questions. The answers that I got were pretty insane. This episode's going to be all about that.
Yeah. And then if you get feedback, you have a little content flywheel going on there. Like it's so good. Yeah, definitely gonna have Katie on. In case Katie uses like PodScan, right? That Arvid, his product. Hi, Katie. Your name just popped up a million times.
Katie.
Jennie, this has been mind blowing. I don't say that word a lot, but I have a lot to think about as someone who struggles to grow his list sometimes. I know my listeners have a lot to think about. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they find you?
I'm incredibly approachable. Follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Tell me that you saw me on this podcast. Joe sent me, whatever. And I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to, kind of support you. My website, jennywright.com, all my services are there as well. And willing to, obviously there's some free resources that you can grab there as well. And willing to help out any way I can.
Awesome. I will have all of that in the show notes over at streamlined.fm/423. Again, if you want to hear Jennie and I talk about how to mix it up when doing podcasts. I'm also going to ask her about a few other podcast people because now we've crossed people we know multiple times. You can become a member over there as well. You'll get every episode ad-free and extended. You'll get bonus episodes. And maybe starting soon, maybe this already started based on when this episode comes out, I'll be doing an automation of the month, which feels like a pretty high value thing based on a lot of stuff that I already have that I can deliver for you. So head on over to streamlined.fm/423. And yeah, Jennie, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It's been fantastic and I've loved the conversation. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Feelings are mutual. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you for listening. And until next time, I'll see you out there.